Hey guys, Del Colvin here to talk to you guys today a little bit about fall fishing and show you some of the top baits that I use in the fall. I'm going to explain to you guys when to throw them and kind of where to throw them. I get a lot of questions on when to make the change. Fall traditionally is a tough time of year for fishing. There's a lot of stuff going on underneath the water. The bait's moving. The temperature's dropping, the thermocline's coming up. That being said, to make things a little easier for you, I'll give you a couple tips on what works for me throughout the fall time and go over some of the baits. If you haven't been on the water and it's fall, what you're looking for is the shad. The shad bite can be a big key this time of year. We're mid-October right now. The leaves are just starting to change. No more sweating. Starting off, I'm going to go to the back of the creeks and make sure that the shad aren't back in there. Ultimately, that's where they're headed. The gizzard shad, the threadfin shad, they all go to the back of the creeks this time of the year. So those fish are right behind them. So if I'm going in the back, I'm going to pick out a couple baits. I'm going to go in early and see if I can see any surface activity. If I have surface activity, I'll start off with a big walking bait. This particular model is a Zero Spook one knocker, walk the dog style bait. I prefer this if the water's dirty. By dirty for bull shoals, you got a little, you can see down 3 foot instead of 10. If I do get in the back and I see that the water's clear, what I'll do is I'll go to a more of a natural style bait. This is a Lucky Craft gunfish. When the conditions are sunny, flat, and the water's clear, that's going to help you guys catch a couple fish. And when I'm in the back, and pretty much all fall, I'm not going to slow down until I locate either the bait or the fish. And for moving baits, you can grab a square bill. A square bill is going to be a staple. This bait is used in skinny water. I prefer shad style baits. This one's a little beat up. It's caught one or two, but what I'm doing with this is I'm chucking and winding, paralleling the banks, going along the shoreline, keeping the boat up close to the bank as I'm using that, and banging it into stuff, whether it's rocks, bushes, anything that thing can deflect off to trigger the bite. If those fish are there, they're going to eat it, guys. Now, when I'm back there, if it's, when I say conditional, we can't control the weather, but if it's stormy, cloudy, windy, you're going to want to power fish. Those are the conditions where you grab the big rod, you grab the big bait, and you get after it. Day in, day out, you can throw a Whopper Popper if it's windy, if it's cloudy, and you got a front coming in. That's when you want to throw the Whopper Popper. Some guys live and die by this. You know, early in the morning, I like to throw this during low light conditions. Those fish will be active. You'll get a good morning bite and a good evening bite when the light is low. You fish till 10 o'clock, you've caught 3 or 4 keepers, and you haven't caught a fish in 3 hours. That's your cue to go make a change, guys. A couple things you can do. The Buzzbait, guys, is another tool that I like to use to cover water. If you're using a Buzzbait, the Buzzbait I like to cover a lot of water and move fast with. I'm going to try and, if I've got a little wind, I definitely want to be in the wind. If I'm at a creek arm and one side's got wind, I'm going to hit the side that has the wind on it. If there's boat docks in the way, go fish a couple boat docks. key in on, you know, what your bite is. Once you find those fish, there's shad there, there's bushes, there's rocks. The key being rocks, guys, is, you know, if there's, especially when the sun comes up, that football size rock, whether you make a transition from bluff to, by transition, guys, this is a prime example of a transition. You've got steeper bank that comes, you've got almost straight up and down, and there's a transition from the big rock to the gravel. Well, those boulders there, those football size rocks, that's kind of what you're looking for. That's a transition there. That's what those fish will key in on. So if you add bait and wind to the element there, odds are you're going to be around the fish. Once you've established the pattern, you can run with it. Let's say you're halfway back in a creek and you find them. 9 times out of 10, you can go to the next creek arm and kind of duplicate and run your pattern. If you found them outside deep bushes with a Whopper Popper, go over to the next creek and do the same thing. Now the jig bite, this particular jig is the one thing I have on my deck at almost all times. Jig is one of the staples for Bull Shoals. This is a 7/16 Joule special ops jig. The jig, guys, if you're out here, the sun comes up, you lost your shallow bite, go find the transition banks in the wind, that chunk rock, get in there, start shallow, work your way out. You know, in fall time of year, most of these fish are wanting to be up shallow. The bait is moving up, the temperatures are a little cooler, so don't be surprised if you start catching fish, you know, in 2 foot of water. This time of year can be tough though, because there's still fish out deep. There's fish all over the water column. When that temperature equalizes, you got fish that'll go deep and fish that'll go shallow. I primarily like to chase the ones that are going to go shallow. They're a little bit easier to catch. The other thing I'm going to talk about is a spinnerbait. I don't have one on the deck, but War Eagle spinnerbait, 1/2 ounce, whatever color you like. This is my finesse spinnerbait. It's a swim bait with a little blade on there. This particular model is a Kitech. I use the Kitechs with an owner flashy. That's a size 3/0. And if you don't have a lot of wind and you're around the shad, this is great. I prefer to have some wind if I'm going to throw a spinnerbait. Also, guys, you know, not only does these thread fins move in here, the gizzard shad move in. The gizzard shad, they get real big. So you guys who like the big wake baits, you can, you know, this is the time to pull them out. Any day can be better than others. When you go in the back of a windblown pocket, in the back of a flat, and there's gizzard shad everywhere, that's your cue for you to pick up either the Whopper Popper or that wake bait. Whopper Popper, I prefer to have a little more wind. You know, the wake bait is nice early. If you don't have a lot of wind, you can burn that wake bait, and that'll trigger those strikes. Now, if I'm also in the back and I come across, if you guys come across isolated cover, a beaver is a great bait to just pitch in, whether it's a tree, one tree. You know, I might pick this up for 3 casts and catch 3 fish, only because there's 3 trees in the back of the creek. So those are some of the baits for fall, guys. The big thing is keep moving, put the trolling motor down. You'll find out which cricket they want. Don't be afraid to mix it up and fish the conditions. That being said, appreciate you guys watching. I hope this helps a couple of you guys out. Be sure to subscribe, and thanks.